Welcome, everyone. It looks like we had a volume issue on our little Tim Talk video, but that's okay. We are so excited that you are here for yet another Tim Talk. I'm just blown away, quite frankly, about how many good guys and girls there are out there in our automotive space. Today we have the privilege of having Paul Daly, who has been a friend, and even though we don't talk a ton because he's covered up and I'm covered up, I have watched his business grow from afar. I've talked to him and his wife on multiple occasions, and more importantly, not only does he do an amazing job and just have some amazing out-of-the-box concepts, he's just quite frankly, just a great human being, him and his wife both. So with that, I would like to welcome you, Paul, to Tim Talks today. Welcome, my friend.
Hey, it is a pleasure to be here with an intro like that. I think I need to just leave now because I'm just bound to let somebody down.
Awesome. So Paul, I just want to jump right in. We met each other, I believe, at DMSC a couple years ago. We had the privilege to connect and communicate. And then, I follow you on Facebook and LinkedIn, and I listen to, some of the guests that you have on as well. And I'm even seeing the No Crisis Can Win t-shirt. I've got some dear friends that run dealerships. Can you just explain what No Crisis Can Win is and what that is to our people listening today?
Yeah, absolutely. So when the pandemic hit, I was on a lot of calls like you were as well, all across the country with dealers and vendors. No one knew what the heck they should be doing. Everybody was nervous. Everybody was confused. And what I saw, and what I know you saw too, is that every time you were on a call with dealers, everyone felt the same way, but for some reason, we all felt better when we were together. And right. Although there might not have been a lot of answers, there was a lot of encouragement in that. And we know that dealers are some of the most resilient entrepreneurs on the planet, that the automotive industry has been through fires and floods and wars and scandals and material shortages and all that stuff, and always find the way through. So I started a live stream called the Automotive State of the Union, where people just started to flock to because of that one thing, that one insight, that like we feel better when we're together, and we understand when dealers band together, no crisis can win. So that's become the tagline and kind of the rally cry of that Automotive State of the Union event. So we're having our next one tomorrow. So I decided to put it on a t-shirt. And by the way, I'm sending you one.
Thank you. I'll shrink it so I look like I've done a few push-ups.
Extra small. We're gonna go cut off.
That's nasty. You don't want to see that.
A mesh cutoff coming your way.
That's a quarantine body. You don't want to see that. That's nasty. We'll move on. Ladies and gentlemen, if you are listening today, and if you have questions for myself or especially Paul, please just text them to us in the chat box. We'll be happy to answer those for you. And what I love about you, Paul, is I want to unpack. You talk about rebooting, re-engaging. We're talking about that too. In fact, I just 15 minutes ago got done recording our session for DMSC, which is coming up. But when you're seeing that happen, tell us what your thoughts are and what you're seeing in the space when you talk about rebooting, re-engaging, and what's happening with your dealers. And what is it? Just unpack that for us, please.
For sure. That mentality is really founded around one principle, and that is if you in any way, shape, or form believe that the business you had entering this pandemic is going to be the business that you have whenever it is that we get through this, you're just basically lying to yourself. It's just not true. And now the further we've gotten into it, I think the more it's starting to settle in. You're getting more mass adoption of that principle that the business you came in with is not going to be the same business you leave with. So, in politics, you hear people say never waste a good crisis, and there's a lot of debate over who said that. Was it Saul Alinsky? Was it Winston Churchill? I don't know who said it. I never got to the bottom of it. But the truth of it is, in politics, people use that for political gain and power and leverage. But in business, a good crisis, never wasting it, means how can I make a more efficient business that is more sustainable and profitable so that I can, solidify the livelihoods of the people who work for me, that I can deliver to a need that the consumer has now that's different than it was before. So how that plays out in automotive, I think it's some obvious ways and then some not so obvious ways. So the more obvious ways would be something like this. Dealers that have wanted to switch to a one price model, but always knew they would have so much pushback internally that they could either never thought they could get it done or they didn't have the guts to do it, right? And so they kept now that everything's been broken apart, now it makes it much easier to say, okay, everyone's already doing things differently. Let's make a wholesale operational change now and use it to move the ball forward. And I've started to see that happen in several of our dealerships. Another real obvious one that a lot of people are talking about are something like this. I believe that digital retailing solutions be able to serve the customer where they're at, transport a vehicle to and from, deliver offsite was too difficult for my organization, or I'm just successful. Dealers were saying like, hey, I'm successful the way I'm doing it. Why would I change it? And so dealers now I've seen a ton move to start to focus more heavily on digital retailing and delivering the car on site. Probably the less obvious one has to do with personnel. People don't talk about it too often, but honestly, there's never been a better time to uninvite somebody or just not invite somebody back. There have been a lot of furloughs, a lot of layoffs, and we all have those people. We all know those people in organizations that are kind of the vocal minority, the people that cause trouble, the people that if you ever really address the behavior, that they're going to make a much bigger problem for you. So you tend to not approach it. And this is a situation when everybody's already home, like, let's just not bring the people back and we don't have to deal with all that drama. So that's basically what I'm talking about. And I've watched it happen across clients and across industries too, not just in automotive.
Right. So we just threw up a couple of questions to listeners. The first one was, have you made changes have you already made changes that in a normal climate you wouldn't have changed? And then the second one here is, have you leveraged the pandemic to remove disruptive individuals for your team? This is obviously not naming any names, but we've been in a situation before. I just did a pretty long podcast with Glenn Pash talking about managing people remotely. And I think culture, everybody talks about culture, but that's just it. It's culture. Are we perfect? Absolutely not. Do we mess up? Absolutely. But for the most part, people kind of laugh because they've got to talk to 8 or 9 people to get hired here. And if one person has a bad taste, and look, we've missed sometimes, and we've passed on people that are known to be amazing salespeople. In fact, number 1 salespeople in their company, but we don't hire based on, maybe a wake that they have left. Something that you unpacked yesterday with me, because I love the idea, but what I love about you, Paul, is you might hear an idea, but then you'll go deeper and say, yeah, but. And I love the conversations, which makes for great conversation, the yeah, but. So let's yeah, but a couple things.
Right.
David Kane came on a couple weeks ago. I talked to Glenn Pash about it, and a lot of people have been talking about experience. And I still believe that experience is very.
Oh, I lost you, Tim.
Sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
You said, I still believe.
I still believe that experience is a vital part, but you took it a step further yesterday on Facebook Live. So could you let our listeners know your thoughts? In fact, I enjoyed the thought so much that I added a slide to DMSC to people really, they didn't just talk about experience, but this is what truly, when you say experience is the new brand, what are you actually saying? So could you just share your thoughts there?
Absolutely. First and foremost, let me say mega respect for David Kane and Glenn Pash. And I believe that we all come out with the best thinking when we challenge one another's perceptions. And anything that I say is in the spirit of progress and in the spirit of growth. So the phrase we're talking about, experience is the new brand. I agree with experience being a major representation of your brand. It is the touch point that happens when a consumer actually interacts with you. They've chosen to interact with you. They've transacted maybe. There's a before and after transaction experience. So I agree with experience being a major outflow and touch point of your brand. But I also think it's dangerous when we dilute brand, which overarching is the feeling that people get when they see any expression of your brand. So people have said, your team is your brand, your name is your brand, your tagline is your brand, your experience is your brand, your location and facility is your brand. Like, no, those are all expressions of your brand. And whenever we lean so far into one where we say, this is your brand, I think we can really, we step into a danger zone a little bit of, really, what's the word I'm looking for? Of kind of like trying to distill your brand down to one element. And that's never, ever the case. Now, experience is a very important part of your brand in this day and age. During the pandemic, right, we all are trying to adjust our experiences, right? So they provide a level of safety, provide a level of comfort, a level of convenience. And so the ones that do that the best, yes, they are going to disproportionately win. However, you have to remember that your brand actually starts with you being able to understand why it is you do what you do, and then aligning your team behind that, and then communicating that out to the public. And so when they're coming in this way because you've told them something about you, and then you've already set up your team behind your purpose, that where they meet is the experience. But the work that's done to get them to that point is broader than your experience. But if you can't deliver on the experience, then you're shot, right? But communicating that, building the team that can do that, it's much more holistic than just that. So I appreciate that sentiment. Experience is the new brand. I think it should be a specific area of focus. I definitely think so. But I just would caution to really just water it down to just that one thing.
We've talked about, and I've been asked about, leadership and this and that, but everything boils down to leadership in the dealership. That rhymed, didn't it? Leadership in the
Absolutely.
dealership. I need
like it.
Would you make a T-shirt, leadership in the dealership? I just QTM that. We just came up with
You're
another.
going to open your online store right now. Yeah, can you register that? Holly Ann, can you register that?
Register leadership leadership in the dealership TM.
.com. Yeah.
So, think about that. That is the key. That is the key. And because so many of us, look, I'm speaking to myself. I'm not pointing because I for many years, especially when you said it yourself, when dealers and general managers and dealer principals and GSMs, when they have success, and maybe they're leading their PMA and market share, and maybe they're leading and they're making, $3,000 a copy on every pre-owned car, and they're turning their inventory at 45 days, and all the things that make a dealership healthy, especially now with the encouraging thing is, not everybody, but I had one dealer I just hung up a few minutes before the talk. They're in South Georgia, and they're not having, they're almost out of inventory, but dealers are crushing it right now. It all starts with leadership. This is our vision. This is our experience. And this is listen, if you're leading, if someone calls you boss, if you have the ability to put the experience plan, put the marketing plan together, listen, the reason that these particular dealerships have done so well is because, at least the ones that I've talked to and the ones that you're going to hear in my I think Jimmy Yark, I think you're Jim Grodi from Yark is listening. He's going to be on our DMSC call, and some things that they've done, but the leader has to have the vision, and then they have to cast the vision, and your people have to be willing to follow. I think it's so important in everything we do. It's easy to talk about culture. It's easy to talk about experience, but most guys and gals that are in leadership will put a widget on a website. I'm too busy to worry about. And then somebody give me a report and tell me how we did, right? So it's the dealers and the people that are in leadership that say, you know what, I want to make a difference right now. I want to make a difference with people that want to make a difference at a time that makes a difference, and that time is now. And those dealers, what has been beautiful over these last 90, now 120 days, is to see that happen in dealerships, to where those type of people have taken those leadership roles and really catapulted the sales inside their store. So give us some advice. So what would you, if you got a brand new job, and your job was, you were going to be the new general manager of ABC Toyota. When we're talking about experience, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit. We didn't rehearse.
Right. Let's do it.
You're the new general manager of ABC Toyota. You're in charge of marketing. You've got a marketing company maybe, but you're in charge. You have a brand new city. You don't know anybody, but you sit behind the desk. Give us not necessarily step by step, but what's your progression of, when you're talking about experience, you're talking about brand, what do you want to make sure that you're doing to set up these guardrails? I like to put guardrails in my life so that keep me straight, right? These guardrails, whether it's marketing or how you pencil a deal or whatever. Can you just give us just a very brief, okay, I would do this, 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 and this? What is
Yep.
so basically? I'm that guy, and I hire Paul. And Paul, you're my brand guy. So if you guys don't know, I think of Paul as creating your brand, and he's that guy. But help us with that. What would you do?
Sure. So first things first, you need to figure out very, very quickly what you're actually capable of and what you actually believe. Because we've been in stores, I've been in businesses, and they all have, mission and vision on the wall, right? Most of the time, that's not it. Or
Right.
if the owner thinks that,
Right.
the rest of the organization doesn't.
Right.
That happens a lot. So first and foremost, what do we actually believe as a company? What are actual things we can deliver on that sets us apart from everybody else? Because lots of dealers are family owned. Lots of dealers give back to the community. Lots of dealerships have great pricing. No, I've never heard a single dealership say we have a terrible team, right? They all say we have an amazing team. We have the best team. So figure out what is that thing that sets you apart from all those other things that are really kind of table stakes in the automotive industry. Figure that out. The first thing I would do would try to get it down into a sentence. One sentence, because mission statements are great. Most of them are unusable. The reason no crisis can win works because you understand what I mean right away. So figure out what you're actually capable of, what the actual differentiators are, and then distill it down as tight and as potent as you can get it. At Congruent, my agency, its business is more meaningful when people connect on a human level. Right? That informs our marketing, that informs our company culture, that informs how we treat one another on Zoom calls. It informs everything. So I would do that. Second thing I would do is really start to listen to what's going on in culture. I'm not talking car culture. I'm talking about the newspaper. I'm talking about Twitter. I'm talking about Facebook posts. Understand who are my customers, and I'm going to troll the crap out of them. What do they care about? What are they saying? What are their comments, right? Because only then can I really understand a little bit more of what they're looking for and why what I'm doing is going to connect with what they actually want. So very first thing, the third thing I would do is start making content that communicates that. And most people think making content is marketing, right? Outward focus. When you start making content around your USPs, start making content around your actual beliefs and that sentence that you got it down to, and guess what? It actually brings your team on board and aligns your team to do what you're promising you're going to do to your customers. I would make sure everyone saw every marketing piece that I'm putting out there because I would do it to educate my team, but also to market as well. So those are the first three things that I would just jump right in, and I would try to solve that as fast as possible.
That is gold. That is really good stuff. Hopefully you guys, I know we're gonna have a recording of this and send this out. But sometimes it's not that easy. And I have a friend.
It's not easy.
No,
Yeah.
I have a friend of mine on, and I'm not going to mention his store, but he's a friend and he's listening. And I saw his name pop up, but he called me the other day, and definitely not going to throw his dealership under the bus. But he said, I believe in it. I listen to Tim Talks, and I believe in everything that you're telling me. But I sit and I listen to salespeople, and all I hear salespeople talk about is, yeah, I clubbed these guys in the head and I got a five pounder, and I made a 6 pounder, and that's the mentality instead of experience. And it's like it's 40, 50 years ago. And granted, look, profit is not a bad word. We live in a world that in most, even most Highlines. I was at a Lexus store, but a Lexus store is a fancy word for a Toyota store. Nothing wrong with the Toyota store, but the same margin. It's a lot of Lexus stores. Lexus used to be $3,000 average PVR per copy, 3 and 4, and now it's double, and sometimes in some cases triple net. You pray you make 1,200 on the back, right? So what would you tell my friend that's listening now that it's tough for me to get management to believe because they want to club somebody into her head over the $5,000. And look, there's nothing wrong with that. But creating that, if you make a big profit, look, nothing bad. But how do you set the tone in your store? What would you tell that general manager that he can maybe tell that general manager, look, there's nothing wrong with profit, but we need to be thinking, as a lifetime long customer here, and we need to handle the customers a certain way. What would you tell him?
I think he's got a really strong, really big problem and a really significant challenge. And I don't think that the team that you have is good. If you want to change that, it's really going to sting because whatever the system is at your dealership, it is set up to incentivize and reward that behavior. And so the people that are there for that signed up for that. So if you try to pivot from that, it's going to be an insane amount of pushback. And my guess is that 90% of the people would not stay. It's going to be a major disruption for your business to change that. I have watched dealerships change that mentality in their store. It came with a big disruption, but not too long after the disruption, it came with, number one, an amazing culture, more profitable culture, a more sustainable culture. And, but it's no guts, no glory. Like it's going to be a major disruption. I don't think you can easily get those people to change. Actually, I think most times 80-90% of them probably won't change. Like you said, Tim, leaders lead, and a leader's going to lead by defining why you should go somewhere, convincing people that it's a good place to follow. I learned this from, I think it was, I don't remember, maybe it was Dave Ramsey or somebody said 3 levels of unity. There's acceptance, agreement, and alignment. Acceptance says this: you're the boss. You told me what to do. I accept your authority. I'll do it. Agreement says, okay, not only are you the boss, but I also think it's the right way we should go. That's the second level. The third level is alignment, saying like, not only do I accept it because you're the boss, I agree that it's a good way to go, but I see it as my responsibility to make it happen. So all 3 levels are valuable, but it is definitely a stair step. And so like to pursue and get that alignment, you really need to cast a strong vision, and then you really have to have an operational model that supports that vision. So in that store and your friend, I would venture to say the vision is in your mind and in your heart to do that. You haven't made it public or clear enough. And number 2, you don't have a system behind it that incentivizes the behavior that leads to that vision. It's a tough road, man. Whoever you are, like it's a tough road, but it's possible. I've seen it happen.
You know, that's, and again, it all goes back to setting the tone. You know, I talk about setting the tone all the time in every talk that I do. Everybody expects to have a bad experience. What are you going to do to flip the script and differentiate your store? But it truly, I think it's about creating an environment. You know, we were asked about our team. You know, it's creating an environment to where a person knows if they crush it, they're going to get rewarded. Maybe there's room for, you know, and you create that environment. In my opinion, the 2 words that kill any business, I don't care if you're selling pencils, you're selling Rolls Royce, or you're selling F-150s, it doesn't matter. Any business, any business, any church, any school, the 2 words that I think that just kill any business is number 1, insecurity, and number 2, pride. We're insecure. I'm just telling you.
Same thing.
Exactly the same. Well, yeah, exactly. I guess they roll into it, but
ego. It's all ego. Yes.
It's all ego, and it comes in, and we try to, you know, one tries to outplay the other. When you really create this environment that people see that, no, you know what, if I do my job this way, and I believe, and that comes with leading by example too. That comes with, you know, I'll never forget. There's several people that really poured into my life. Ed Fetterman was one. Don Moffitt was another one. On the car side, that they led by example. You know, Don Moffitt would beat, you know, he owned the dealership, but he would beat me, you know, it was a race to see who could get there first thing in the morning. And he would, he'd push a broom, he'd go out and he'd do lot parties, and he'd move cars around. You know, that kind of, but people want to know, you know, people, I tell people all the time, and it's been said 1,000 times, people could care less how much you know. They just want to know you care. You know, and that starts by unpacking, you know, so many of us, even, and I've been guilty of this, we get so busy, but taking the time at least once a week, and hopefully once a day, but some of us are ADD like me, at least once a week, pick somebody on your team and love on them. I'm just telling you, you want to make change you're talking about changing the culture, changing the experience. It starts with you. It just does.
Without a doubt.
The last time that you talk about somebody on the front line, you want to change the culture, talk to your receptionist, pull her aside, love on her or him, whoever is answering the phone. You know, find out where they want to be in 5 years. You know, that salesperson I'll never forget. I was 17 years old in 1989 when I started in the car business. Stop. 48, bro. I'm getting ready to be 49. But 17 years old in 1989, and I went into a Hyundai store, Jake Sweeney Hyundai, and someone pulled me aside. His name was Dave. He pulled me aside, and he literally pointed up a hill, and I have a picture of that house too. And it's not all material, but he said, kid, you've got potential. He said, this business has been great to me. And he pointed at this house that, you know, we didn't have a lot of money growing up. And he pointed at this house and he said, if you do what I tell you to do, one day you'll be able to buy a house like that. And that poured into me. Just that, it was a 5-minute conversation.
Belief, yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, leaders, if you're not a leader, when you try to pour, I talk about this and I'm going off on a tangent, but I'm just so, if we worry about being significant in someone's life, success follows. So leaders, if you're running a dealership, if you need a general manager or dealer principal to listen to this, if Paul and I can leave you with something today, we talked about changing the culture. We talked about going further than just experience as the new brand. It's deeper than that. But companies and cultures are built on one-on-one relationships. They just are. And when we decide to put the egos down and that we're not the smartest person in the room, and every meeting that we go into, we don't think, a lot of times we get success. We're smarter than everybody. We go into a meeting and we're the smartest person in the room. Our mind's already made up before we listen to anybody else. Listen, I'm a country boy from Kentucky. I'm just telling you, I want to learn. I don't care who you are. I want to learn from somebody. I want to get better today than I was yesterday. If we did just that, listen to me, I'm going to pull you real close. If we did just that, and you worried about whose life I am going to pour into today, can I be significant? Do I care about these individuals? Let me tell you something right now. Listen to the words that we are telling you. Your people will act differently. They will be happier. They will want to run through a wall for you. I'm just telling you, love on somebody. Good night. With all the news and everything, we need love now more than everybody. I told people all the time, I took a post. Everybody's talking about, we're not going to go here. I'm just going to make one statement. Everybody's talking about, I love everybody. Hey, instead of loving everybody, love someone. Love one. Let's start with one,
Like
that's
for real.
what the world needs now. They wrote a song about it back in the 60s. What the world needs now is love, man. But it works in business. It works in families. It works in relationships. But we really, 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 if you do just those things, guys, it's going to make a major difference in your business. Paul,
what's up?
Something that you want to leave with our team, with our people listening. A lot of people, there's several hundred people that are going to get this email and maybe they share it, but what's some thoughts that you just want to leave with them today as we're seeing culture change, as we're seeing buying habits change, as we're seeing customer habits change? Just give us a final word.
Yeah, got one teed up. So I talked about this in my podcast this week. It's very easy in these times to start to feel like a victim to your situation, victim to a pandemic, a victim of social unrest, a victim to business models and behaviors changing, a victim to state requirements. You're in Georgia, you don't understand this. It's a free, right. That's a free state right there. Yeah. But the victim to the things that you can't control. But the second you understand, like, let me focus on something I can control, things change. And that has to do with your operations. That has to do with your company culture. That has to do with your internal motivation. If every time in your mind you find yourself complaining or, sometime worrying about or being afraid of something you can't control, I hope that this triggers and you think about, all right, I'm going to stop thinking about that. What can I control right now? If you start thinking about that, I guarantee you things will be getting better. I'm preaching to myself too, because I fall victim to the same exact thing. That's what I want people to leave with.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do have a question, something that I've tried to do, because people are on the busy, man, send a text. Send an encouraging text after work to somebody and love on them. Just say, hey, listen, I just want to let you know, I know you've been working your rear end off. I just want to let you know I appreciate you. Send a text. Yep. People text. Let's eat our own dog food. We're a chat and text communication company. Send a text. Hey, listen, I just want to let you know, I really appreciate all of her work. There's no words. That is where it all starts. We have a question. So let's answer this and then we'll land this plane.
Sure.
What is the key title or type of person to hire to start to execute and assist on that disruption? Ooh. That's a loaded question, because what if you're the general manager? Who do you hire? What if if you're the dealer principal, maybe it starts with the general manager. So I'll let you tackle that. And if there's any meat left on the bone, I'll try to take my take.
All right. So if you're the owner, it starts with the general manager. Yeah. If you're general manager, it starts with your sales team and your HR department, I believe. Here's the question. You have to understand, write it out. This is a paragraph, right? This is what I want to happen. And then hold that paragraph up next to a picture of that next leader on your team. If you're an owner, write it out. Look at the general manager's face in the picture and say, is this the person that's going to help me get there? immediately you will know the answer. And that's your answer. So I'm saying this not to be self-serving, but objectivity, somebody from outside your company that you give the permission to tell you the truth is often a great place to start, because oftentimes you're inside your organization with the best intentions. It's often very difficult for people to tell you the truth, especially if you're the owner, especially if you're the GM.
So I'm not adding anything to that, because that's exactly how I would have worded it. How can, and again, we want to make this, we're not selling anything, but I really, because I've heard customers, I've heard dealerships, and I think so much of Paul. If you need Paul's help, Paul, how do people get a hold of you, people listening and sharing and resharing this podcast? How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I really appreciate that, Tim. Probably the best way is to just go to my personal webpage. I have contact information right there. It's pauljdaly.com. I do have an agency called Congruent. The links to all that are on there. Or you can DM me on LinkedIn. I'm willing to give you my phone number, but whatever it is, I try to make myself as available as possible, and then from there, it's like, how can we help? We have an audit process through the agency that we look at everything. Like we have, but even if you just want to have a few words, I'm here for you.
Thank you so much. And that's really the tone that we want. Guys, you can buy an F-150 where I'm sitting here. And as you see the stadium outside Atlanta, there's four dealerships within probably a 20-mile radius of me, and I can go buy one anywhere. It starts with you. It starts with leadership. It starts with this. And you need to, at least, if anything else, we talk about reviewing the game film, review the game film, sit down, talk with your people, and you'll really know the temperature of your leadership to make sure that they are, and where you need to go with that. Paul, thank you so much. We actually have an announcement before we go away. We are giving away every week. We are giving away a ticket to DMSC just again. This is July 13th through the 15th. And you're going to have a ticket. And we're doing it. In fact, I just shot my DMSC breakout session. And you can tune in there on some best practices. Some of our greatest dealers are going to be in that session. But we are giving away a ticket. And you're going to have the entire content of DMSC on there, all the breakouts. You'll look like the hero in your dealership. And you can share that, put it in a conference room area, and get better together. So this week's winner is, drum roll please, this week's winner is a picture of, there we go, Mackenzie Gray of Elm Creek Auto Group. Mackenzie Gray, thank you so much for listening to Tim Talks and putting up with us. We truly care about you. We want to get better together, and hopefully you'll get something out of this. Paul, thank you so much,
yes,
brother. Truly appreciate you. I appreciate your heart. I appreciate your wife and what you stand for, and just excited seeing your success moving forward. So guys, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Tim Talks. Have a great week.